Hey, thanks so much for scanning the QR code and taking a second to watch this video. It means you're interested in at least the premise and what this is about. So let me give you a brief history of how we got to this point. Back in January, we held our first ever Thin Red Line event here on New Hope's campus, where we were challenging the men of New Hope to step into something more. See, we believe that God created men to be not only the leaders in their lives, but the leaders of their homes and the leaders of the church. What we have experienced is that when men take their God-given role seriously, there is health and fruit that takes place not only in their lives, but in their families and their wives and their children's, and especially even in their church. So at that Thin Red Line event, we challenged the men of our church to live into this. Coming out of the Thin Red Line event, we have since held 3 early breakfast studies where we have walked through the 3 main key takeaways of the Thin Red Line event. And the progressive next step for us as we were looking at it was going, how do we drive this home, and what would it look like to create a discipleship intensive? So the first 2 weeks we want to talk about what does it mean to be with Jesus. And so we're going to focus in on what does it mean to have the internal spiritual life. So we're going to talk about our identity in Christ. And we're going to talk about what does it look like to walk with Jesus, to build that strong, intimate, ongoing spiritual discipline of being with Jesus daily. And then we're going to talk about what does it look like to become like Jesus for a few weeks. What does it look like to step into biblical manhood and to lead in our home? What does it look like for us to be peaceful people who handle conflict in a way that is righteous and holy? Because we see Jesus handle conflict and we see Jesus call us to be peacemakers, but we live in a world that is full of conflict. So how do we handle conflict? How do we handle forgiveness? And how do we live like Jesus in the midst of that? How do we handle money? How do we steward our work in our home? How do we go through suffering and trials and perseverance? And then the last couple of weeks, we're going to talk about how do we live or do as Jesus did. So what does it look like to live in accountability with other brothers? And what does it look like for us to live on mission, to disciple other people? Each group is going to meet for about 60 minutes. And that 60 minutes is going to look the same every time. There's going to be about a 10-minute window where we reflect upon the homework from last time. We're going to pray together. And then we're going to spend about 25 to 30 minutes walking through each of those outlines that I just gave you. And then there's going to be 15 minutes of discussion, of accountability, and the challenge and homework for next time. And then we'll pray and we'll be dismissed. The reality is that discipleship isn't just about what happens in our head. It's about what happens in our heart as well. The head doesn't breed transformation, it only receives information. But that information, when it goes into our heart, breeds change and transformation and allows us to begin living differently. So these groups are designed to push us as the men of New Hope to step into our calling, to be the men of Jesus that he has called us to be, and then to see what can happen from there.